Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol. Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol.
Namaste. Saints can do anything better than others can. Now, I would not call Anandamayi Ma a saint. Ma was the embodiment of that which makes saints. But it was interesting because Ma could do the most incredible things physically. I don't mean in the sense of miracles. For example, the sacred thread. The sacred thread is a cotton circle. Actually, is composed of three threads, which has a knot at one end, and is put on by the Brahmins. They wear it across the. It's called the Yagyapavita also, which means it's a sacrificial, actually, thread, and they would never think of doing worship or even fire sacrifices without wearing it. All right. Well, you can imagine, think of that much. And of course, it has to be a cord because, they wear it for a certain amount of time. They even loop it around their thumbs sometimes, and they hold it out. So it's like twine that we have, that we tie packages up with, maybe not as coarse, but string. It's a string. It's not just a thread like what you get off a spool. But Ma could make these that were so small and so delicate, you could put them inside a little seed pod so big. But it literally isn't even hardly a quarter of an inch in length. And yet, the Yagyapavit she made could go right in there. A man one time said he couldn't eat radish for anything. Not only could he not stand its taste, and they cook radish sometimes in India, but that his stomach couldn't handle it. Ma invited him for lunch, and it was an elaborate lunch with many dishes. And he loved them all and ate them all up. And then Ma told him everyone was made out of radish. I mean, there was a savory part, there were sweets, all of these things, they were all made from radish by Ma. Ma could also sing things nobody else could sing. People would try to copy her. And one time, she just began spontaneously singing this song, which unfortunately the words I forget. It had Hare Marare in it, and it was exquisitely beautiful. And people tried to sing along with her, and they couldn't. Someone couldn't get it. I mean, they heard the tune, but they couldn't get it. Then they called for Vibhuda, later Brahmachari Brahmananda, who was a musical expert. In fact, he'd been a professional singer. And they said, Vibhuda, listen to this and sing it. Then you can teach it to us. He couldn't do it. When they said, Ma, we can't do it, Ma said, no one can do what a child can do. But nobody believed she was a child. Certainly.
अभी समझो, सुनो बात सुनो, कभी कभी ये बात कहती किसी वक्त, अभी तुम लोग बात ऐसा स्थान पे आ गया, तो बातें हैं जैसा.
People asked Ma, well, what are you? Who are you? What are you? And Ma would say, I'm whatever you think I am. Well, that's incredibly profound because she's meaning I'm everything. And also, I will be whatever you think I am. So people who thought she was crazy, well, she was crazy. People who thought she was a fraud, well, she was a fraud. People who thought she was God, yes, she was. Indeed, indeed. No one can describe just the seeing of Ma. Your consciousness was changed. And in that change, you began to start seeing yourself, which is what you needed. So Ma didn't delude people by drawing their awareness out. I could tell you another incident which I had thought of and then lost in my other verbiage. Two friends of mine that were Ma was their life, Americans, and they had a friend who was kind of one of these homespun philosophers that they, in their goodness and the sattvic purity of their hearts, thought was real and sincere. And so they went to visit him, and they took a photograph of Ma with them. That was one of the more spectacular photographs of Ma. There were many. And they said, well, you know, we went to India. We went to see this woman. She's called Anandamayi Ma. And let me backtrack. I have mentioned this before, I do believe, though a long time ago, that one time when I was living in an apartment house, the people next door got accidentally locked out. And there were actually the two people lived there and about two or three friends of theirs. So they knocked on my door and said they were locked out. The locksmith was coming. Could they come in and sit in my apartment until the locksmith got there? And I said, sure. Well, they came in, and of course, there was my altar, and there was a picture of Ma, pretty large. And they were fascinated by it. They said, who is that? And I explained as much as could be, or briefly. Of course, I hadn't yet met Ma. And it was interesting. One of them said, well, she looks like my grandmother. Another said, well, no, it looks like my aunt. And every one of them said that Ma looked like someone who was very dear and close to them. Isn't that interesting? So my friends took the photo to Mr. Homespun and said, here is a photograph of this person we went to see in India. So he looked at it and said, stringy-haired old broad, ain't she? Yes, indeed. Ma said on occasion, I neither come nor go. When people say, oh, Ma, we wish you wouldn't leave, etc., she said, I neither come nor go. She was neither born nor unborn. You see, Ma accepted anything. And why the time that I have told about sometime before, in the afternoon rest time, when one or two of the people who travel with Ma came into Ma's room, and they found this known, you can say black magician, sorcerer, Tantric actually, from Brindavan, sitting there out loud reciting these curse spells in Sanskrit. And Ma was sitting there watching him, and he was very interested in what was going on. I mean, she was quite. And they came to me and said, "We are really worried because we saw this." And he had been there a day before, and I had watched him sort of looking at Ma, you know. And so this was what he was planning. And they said, since Ma doesn't reject it, we're afraid she'll accept it, she'll get sick, or she could die. And it happened that she became deathly ill. She went into a coma. And when I saw her in that state, I mean, she looked dead. And a lot of prayers were done, a lot of tapasya promised. And of course, Ma came out of it because in reality, nothing touched her, but she was in the world to teach us. And so there was this experience. But even there, even a manifestation of the supreme consciousness in the world goes through or seems to go through the things that we who are deluded go through. This is why, for example, there were occasions where people thought Mother was virtually dead and they were grieving. And they say, well, Mother has been unconscious. We have for days she hadn't spoken. And I mean, they'd be crying and they'd tell people to come to the ashram. We think this may be, the end of Ma's time with us and so on. And suddenly, wham, here comes Ma busting out saying, is everybody ready to go? And off they go somewhere. Therefore, one of my dear friends, Brahmacharya Chitra, at one point said, I don't believe anything she says or does anymore. Because there would be these amazing changes. For example, Brahmacharya Atmananda told me that one time Ma was there in Dehradun and deathly ill, and no one thought she would survive. And I mean, everyone knew that this was Ma's Leela, this was Ma's doing, but it may be Ma's Kayala, will, desire, to appear to be sick and die. So still, they took it seriously. Well, she said that there was this, and one time in the middle of the day, usually when everyone's resting, she saw Ma come out of a door, and Ma had to lean against a wall, put both hands against the wall and lean, and just push herself along, just to move. And then Atmanandaji thought, well, finally, this must be the end. I mean, there. So, within a few hours, Atmanandaji went to where she stayed. She came back to the ashram. Everything was all a bustle. And she said, what's going on? What's going on? And they said, oh, Ma's leaving. She told us to hurry up and pack. And we're going in. Here came Ma. And up into the car. Away they went. Yes. It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
পশু পাখি তারা সবে প্রহরে প্রহরে ডাকে পশু পাখি তারা সবে প্রহরে প্রহরে জাগে তুমি মন সুখে তুমি মন লিপ্ত সুখে ঘুমের ঘরে মারছ ছাড় হরি বলে ডাক রে অমন গুরু বলে ডাক